And Coach Brawls, of course, kept telling me, he was our coach at Arkansas, he said, no, I don't want you to do anything to upset the boys because we were playing Alabama. And they had a fine, fine football team. But after the ball game, of course, there was a big mix-up, and I didn't see Al, but I saw one of the other Charger scouts, and the guy whom I thought was a Charger scout, and it ended up he was with San Francisco. And he had me over there on the goalpost, and I almost signed, but I didn't. And Al walked up about that time and saved me, but I'd almost signed, and I hadn't even talked money with him.
Allworth went on to become one of pro football's most feared pass catchers. When the Kansas City Chiefs signed Otis Taylor, they got a pass receiver who knew what to do with the ball after he caught it. Lamar Hunt wasn't about to let Otis get away.
He was being closely guarded by NFL babysitters in the Dallas area. And in one night, the night before the draft, he was moved from, I think, 3 or 4 different motels to try to make our agents lose his trail. And our scout, Lloyd Wells, was successful in getting Otis out the window at about 4 in the morning and spiriting him to the airport and flying him up here to Kansas City, where we drafted Otis in a high round the next morning and signed him. And it ended very happily for us.
In 1965, New York sold nearly 25,000 more season tickets than the previous year. Why? Because Sonny Werblin signed Joe Namath to a contract calling for an estimated $400,000.
$400,000 for a football player, well, that's ridiculous. Football players said it was ridiculous. Everybody said it was ridiculous for somebody to pay that type of money for an individual, untried. But the thing is, what it did accomplish, I think, looking back now, is that it got everybody to look at the American Football League. And finally they said, well, I'm going to watch this.
And watch it they did. Broadway Joe became a celebrity in New York and eventually led the Jets to a world championship. The Kansas City Chiefs were still finding more plums on the tree. Heisman Trophy winner Mike Garrett was one of the more pleasant surprises to come out of the battle for players.
Mike, I think, is probably one of the most complete backs that I've ever coached. We really thought, however, that he was committed to the Los Angeles Rams, and as a result, we didn't get involved in drafting him early because of this commitment we thought he had to the Rams. And very frankly, there was a little doubt as to whether or not Mike would be able to be big enough to endure the duration of a 20-game campaign in professional football. But in the 20th round, he wasn't drafted by anybody in the American Football League, and we sincerely felt that we should go ahead and draft him and hope for the best. And it was one of the great things we've done as a football team since 1960.
Pete Gogolak of the Buffalo Bills was the first of the soccer-style kickers to make it big in professional football. He was also the first named player to jump from the AFL over to the NFL. Gogolak signing with the New York Giants bitterly intensified the rivalry between the two leagues. The American Football League's growth continued, and the fans were treated to bigger and better stadiums. Also, former NFL coaches were bringing their experience and ideas into the younger AFL. Baltimore's Weeb Eubank came to New York. Detroit's George Wilson became the coach of the new Miami Dolphins. Cleveland's Paul Brown found a home with the Cincinnati Bengals. And in one of the biggest surprises, Don Shula left the NFL Colts to become head coach at Miami, replacing George Wilson. Coach Shula was only too familiar with the AFL. In the third Super Bowl game, the Colts were heavy pregame favorites. But Jets quarterback Joe Namath took issue with the experts. Namath didn't predict victory, he guaranteed it. Joe's confidence was contagious as the Jets followed their leader's game plan perfectly in the Orange Bowl. Audibles at the line of scrimmage enabled Namath to destroy any blitzing tactics by Baltimore. Matt Snell served as an effective pass receiver as well as runner. Snell scored the game's first touchdown, and the Jets knew they could move the football on the pride of the NFL. If there was one play that ruined the Colts on Super Sunday, this was it. Baltimore had used it successfully during the regular season. Only this time, quarterback Earl Morrall did not see Jimmy Orr, who was all alone downfield. Jim Hudson picked off the pass, and the Colts' threat was wiped out. The Jets slowly began pulling away from Baltimore. Jim Turner applied the pressure with the first of 3 field goals. Joe Namath encouraged his teammates, while Turner put the game on ice with his 3rd field goal. With the score 16-7, old pro Johnny Unitas was trying desperately to beat the clock. Finally, Randy Beverly cut in front of Jimmy Orr for the interception that closed the door on the stunned Colts. Joe Namath called his shot. The Jets had accomplished the impossible, a 16-7 Super Bowl victory over the best of the NFL. Neither team got into the Super Bowl the following year, but the predictions remained the same. This time, the Minnesota Vikings, with their devastating defense, were supposed to beat the American Football League representative Kansas City Chiefs. But like the previous year, the underdog scored first. Jan Stenerud gave the Chiefs an early 3-0 lead. And it was the soccer-style specialist booting another shortly thereafter. The New Orleans Super Bowl crowd couldn't believe the scoreboard. The Chiefs, with pro football's most imaginative offense, were causing the Vikings' tough defense all kinds of problems. This reverse by Frank Pitts set the stage for Jan Stenerud. Kansas City was playing smart, aggressive football and leading 9-0. During the regular season, it was usually the Vikings who grabbed the lead, then called on their spirited defense to turn back the opposition. Now the shoe was on the other foot, and Minnesota was in trouble. Coach Hank Stram and quarterback Lenny Dawson had the play that couldn't miss, if everyone did his job. It was a trap that sprung Mike Garrett loose and into the end zone. Unbelievable. Kansas City had Minnesota on the ropes. The Chiefs led 16-0. The knockout punch was finally applied by Otis Taylor. Taylor refused to stop running until he reached the end zone. The Chiefs' versatile offense had done the job. Now it was up to the defense. For Viking quarterback Joe Kapp, this was his longest day. The Kansas City defense was magnificent. For the 2nd straight year, the AFL had captured the championship of professional football. For the American Football League, the battle was won. Parity was achieved, and the struggle for survival was over.
I hope you enjoyed this journey back to the ballparks and arenas of our past. I'm Dwayne Dow, and hope you enjoyed this edition of Distant Replay.